Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Greetings. Today's talk focuses on the fact that Tesla has a giant parking problem. And that problem was articulated by the Wall Street Journal. So we wanted to take a highlight of this today because another piece of news that just came out is that Etron, after selling 2,600 units from Audi last year, has declined to only, they've shut down after selling 2,600 units in 2019, and now they've shut down production to address evidently some software issues that they may be having. So we wanted to revisit this story from the Wall Street Journal relative to Tesla and its future, because I think it's a really instructive element of what the deal is. Now, I will admit to you that we have big enough waves right now to have surfing here going on, so I'm trying to frame our show so you can catch the surfers here in Redondo Beach as well. So you'll have to work with me a little bit just in case. We got pilfered yesterday, so I actually don't have my regular cables, and we're missing a mic and a stand, but so we're plan being on sound, so we will work to make sure it's as good as we can do. So this is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. Wanted to thank our Patreon supporters as well as our subscribers. Your presence on the channel makes a huge difference and is greatly appreciated. So again, we're in Redondo Beach, California. We're actually trying to blend in more videos so you can enjoy the beach in case you don't live near one or it's winter. There was a story that was in the Wall Street Journal in November of a year and a half ago. And what the story was about is that it was announced by the Wall Street Journal that they had a whole bunch of photos of the Tesla parking lots, both the Fremont factory as well as the headquarters in Palo Alto. And what they noticed or noted was that there was chaos in the parking lot. And so we thought this was a really interesting story because it was picked up by many news outlets, and you can kind of look it up. Why it was interesting is that what the Wall Street Journal was pointing out was, if in fact Tesla is unable to build a parking lot for its employees, what's the chance that it can build a great car, short and long term, that investors and owners of all types would enjoy? So this is one of sort of a monthly series of fairly negative commentary on Tesla over time. And we had a new look at this that I wanted to bring up to you guys that I think is worth your time of understanding. So the first thing to note in Silicon Valley is that there's a process of how companies work. First, you have a small group of sort of founders and technologists who put together the technology. That group is probably 5 to 7 people deep. And for things like cars, it would probably involve a warehouse, where other types of technologies like software may not involve warehouses as it did here. So what basically happens is you start out kind of in a garage situation or a large production, working facility. The next stage in the process is that you actually start renting space legitimately. And so the next step is you rent space, proof of concept is completed, you build a product, and hopefully it gets out there successfully. So now you have all of your employees, and they're spread among all these buildings in and around Silicon Valley because you didn't have enough money to actually build a building and have all your people in one contiguous space to start off. So this is sort of tier 2 phase of how technologists or Silicon Valley operates. The next stage of the process is company IPOs, and there's a ton of cash now available to help sort of build and structure the company. And what this cache allows is what's called the campus zone. So basically, a company will, all those employees that are spread between large number of buildings are now consolidated into one location, and it's kind of expensive to do it, but it is actually more efficient because you have everybody under one roof and you don't have to run between buildings and all that stuff in order to get business done. So totally logical way to handle business, logical way to restructure yourself, and Wall Street loves seeing more professionalism from your company. What's really fascinating about this is most, probably half to 2/3 of the companies in Silicon Valley, and even the ones that have been very successful like Cisco, experienced a phenomenon where they actually drop into deep problems once they enter this phase or the campus phase. So everything is pristine. Wall Street loves it because you look organized. You've got great parking and everything's great. The problem is that for some reason, this is a correlation between the companies, all of a sudden stumbling. It could be sales decline. It could be a whole range of issues depending on the company. It's been a different one. So one of the sort of secret elements or secret sauces to Silicon Valley is it in your best interest to theoretically avoid the nice campus zone, because it seems to be not the death necessarily of some good companies, but a severe setback zone for shareholders and the company alike. Why does this happen? Great question. The story's been different depending on the firm, but it's been very consistent in Silicon Valley history. So why am I dragging you down this path? The reason is, let's go back to where Tesla is currently. Tesla has its headquarters in a small building adjacent to Stanford. They're deliberately trying to stay in that location because you have access to all manner of resources of intellectual capability at Stanford, and all of that sort of bleeds into your company naturally in interns, in full-time employees, all these different ways. So by staying very close to Stanford, there are a lot of benefits that you get, but one of the drawbacks is that the land is crazy expensive. In fact, you can only do 99-year leases in that portion. So Stanford has a thing where they created an industrial park, and Tesla is in that space. That industrial park will give you long-term leases, but it was an industrial park built in the 50s by Stanford, and if you didn't, your only option was a lease. There was no option to purchase that land. And so the land there is at a premium because there are some big companies like VMware and other entities that lurk there. Xerox PARC was there, HP's headquarters. There are all these companies that are sort of in and around kind of this office park area. So we wanted to bring this up today because if you think about it, the Wall Street Journal highlighted the fact that, guess what? Tesla doesn't know how to build parking lots to address their employee needs. Well, both at the Fremont factory as well as at headquarters, parking is a mess. It's very hard to get a space. You have to get to work early to find one. They have valet parking as one way to solve the issue in both the headquarters as well as in the Fremont plant. So it, in my mind, is still chaos. And because the number of employees keeps growing, the chaos that was already there keeps getting more chaotic. There has been a little bit of relief that's been showing up for the Fremont factory because we had a situation where there's a rail line where they put a new train stop there so people can commute in via rail. So what I'm sort of hedging towards right now is that the reason why Tesla has horrible parking is that there are these phases, and Tesla hasn't gotten to the campus phase yet of existence, and therefore their company is actually doing pretty well. So I'd have to say we 100% agree with the analysis that says that Tesla does not know how to build parking. And so what this further articulates is the fact that how can a company be this good and have issues building parking spaces? Now, I want to say another data point here as we're discussing this is that in the case of VW Audi has excellent parking spaces, and they have a lot of engineers, and they have parking spaces at all their major locations around the world. The challenge is they're unable to compete with Tesla. What this further highlights is the fact that there's this phenomenon where many of the most successful giant companies that compete in the Silicon Valley, Cisco comes to mind as a big one, have a process where if they have an idea they want worked on by a group of engineers and they want it to be successful, instead of keeping it in-house, they will ship that out into a skunk work situation where the executives get a portion of ownership of it, and then they get to go out and prove whether the technology does not work. And then if they're successful, they actually get repurchased and bought back into Cisco. And so there are a lot of Cisco executives that made a killing through this process, but it really highlights the fact that one of the challenges with competing with startups like a Tesla is that there's this challenge of it's hard to get people within a big company to work on something that's going to put them and their coworkers out of work, perhaps permanently. And so by going out to these outside entities, you have the ability to get a finished product done without the encumbrances or limitations of a large organization, and then you return to that large organization after you've got everything rolling. I've been watching VW for a while, as well as Mercedes, and I feel like Mercedes does, or Daimler-Benz does a better job of, in this case, buying outside companies that they can integrate into their firms successfully, and therefore not have some of the issues I just described. So I want to bring this up to you because Etron / Audi's Etron was just stopped in the production process, supposedly because of software problems. There have been discussions of them having battery acquisition issues. We don't know which one it is, but nonetheless, they're in a situation right now where they're not producing. So we wanted to note this circumstance and what was going on with the company, because it really is highlighting sort of the beneficial structure that Tesla has that enables it to keep competing aggressively. And so one of the things that we've repeated a couple of times in shows is that Tesla just raised $2 billion. So in theory, Tesla is in a situation where they actually raised money, but somewhat you can't see a brand new campus with good parking that you can point to. The challenge with this, though, is that the factory for the Semi, the factory or the building that's being built to house the construction of the Roadster and Semi are either in Livermore or right next to the Giga 1 out in Reno. And so we have a situation where if the money is being raised and spent and you can't see the nice campus, are you spending this money on hookers and coke instead of actually expending cash in order to better serve and service your company? And the answer is, until we see these buildings, the whole list of them and what's been put inside and how much it costs, one could argue that, yeah, maybe Tesla's engaged in some nefarious activities that are bad news, and therefore we're going to get some really bad news. On the other hand, really Elon likes the idea of maintaining a hustling space where everybody's working hard, recognizing that despite the fact that they're doing well, they're striving to perform. So this is another metric in the Tesla brick wall of, if you ask the question, will they perform? You have a CEO who's motivated with a large number of shares that he owns. He's also motivated because he ain't spending no money on parking spaces. What's up with that? And so the Wall Street Journal, etc., those guys are unhappy. But for the insiders of Silicon Valley, they know well that the prettier the campus is and the better organized it looks, the fact that the money was spent to get that beauty is one thing, but the other factor is that all that money, time, and management focus has been drawn away from what the key focus should be, which is better operation of a company that can deliver for shareholders. So one could argue that from a shareholder standpoint, Elon and Tesla are doing the right thing. You could argue from the employee standpoint, it sucks to find a parking space. But in our mind, what this really articulates is that Tesla really has its priorities in alignment with what shareholder needs are. And I think that by doing stuff like this, you not only you align all the stakeholders, be it employees, work, because they're stockholders as well, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, it sucks to be an employee trying to find a parking space at Tesla, but if you own stock, be it an investor or an employee that owns that stock, you're happy with the focus on performance and not on the perks. So in the case of the Wall Street Journal, if in fact you have organizations like a bank or some of these other institutions, an insurance company, all of them have to display brilliantly looking environments for people to be comfortable investing in those firms. But when it comes to Silicon Valley, those with the nicest campuses often end up not too far away from going out of business. So our statement then on the Wall Street Journal is, yes, you're right that Tesla has horrible parking, and horrible parking usually implies a disorganized mess of a company that's about to go out of business. But in Silicon Valley, it kind of works the opposite. And so therefore, we think that we can really look forward to Tesla continuing to do well, because the hungry startup mentality that it takes to really beat out competitors, deliver great products, and keep moving is exactly what Tesla is doing. And we say hats off. And to the Wall Street Journal, we say, guess what? There are people who have horrible parking, but they actually build great companies that shareholders are happy with, despite the fact that the parking sucks. So I want to thank you for reviewing our Tesla parking challenges with us today. We also wanted to remind you 25 leg lifts if possible, strengthens the quad muscles per day with a 5-pound weight. We also wanted to encourage you to not go to bed within 2 hours of eating, allows the food to digest. Also mentioning the 5-2 diet or any other fasting diet that might be beneficial to your health. We also wanted to encourage you to consider maybe once or twice lifting weights as a way to increase bone density. And obviously we have many other health tips, but those are the ones we'll emphasize today. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Thanks once again for joining us. In German, we say tschüss, French, au revoir, lahitro, Hebrew, hodah, fez, Farsi. In Jamaica, we say, enough respect, walk good, man. Thanks again. Have a great day. Bye for now. And we look forward to our next conversation. And we're taking you out once again, beach style, with the surfers here in Redondo Beach. So on this side of the beach, on the hill there, is a place called Palos Verde and Palos Verde Estates. And then Hermoso Beach is the next beach all the way up. But when the waves are breaking this big, particularly in the morning before work, there are a lot of surfers that are out, and they're out taking in the wonderful weather as well as the wonderful surf, because the waves are big enough to surf. I apologize for the challenges with sound today. We were unfortunately pilfered and therefore lost a couple items we have to replace, but not a major deal. Thanks again for the time. Have a great day, and bye for now. And by the way, we did see the stock price down $60-70 today in sympathy with the rest of the market. It's unfortunate. Obviously the long-term holders are going to hang in there. We definitely think there's a short-term challenge here. Unless they can get their arms around coronavirus, it could be down more. So that's a footnote on that. Have a great day. Bye for now. Thanks for joining us.